scaling. We need a seed of scaling. If we start without thinking, how is it going to look like in half a year from now, and have this, what we call in Toyota production system, Hoshin Kanri, the North Star. If you don't have the North Star, we are failing ourselves, our clients, our teams, everyone. We got to think scaling from day one. I'm going to give you an example from a client of mine, totally different industry. It's aluminum casting solutions, right? Aluminum casting process is crazy because first you have to inject a mold, a metal mold that you've built a lot of nuts and bolts. You pre-made that mold. You need to inject wax in it. And the wax sits down and then you break, you remove with the nuts and bolts, remove the steel mold. And now you have a wax cast. Now you need to work on it and you need to add wax here where it didn't really inject well. You need probably to polish the wax. So now you have wax, so you want to have aluminum instead of wax. What do? You pour glue and sand on the wax, and then you let it sit down and you melt the wax. So now you have another mold. This time the mold is hardened sand. What you do now is you take it to another department. This department injects with high pressure, injects inside aluminum, and aluminum now has to cure. It needs to sit down and then reheat it, sit down, reheat it, probably 7-10 days. Over this time, you have aluminum inside, you break the sand. Now you have an aluminum part. This is usually used, custom made for aviation industry. And now you take this part and bring it down that last station. These are folks that are doing the polishing, the finishing, and they need to polish and finish and work on the finished aluminum part until it's up to spec. Now the problem for the management, you could imagine, was, hey, this is a complex process. This is not coding, but it's almost as complex, or not even more maybe, right? This is immeasurable. How can I quote my customers the work that's needed? Because there's a lot of variance of work time for every single part, right? This is almost like artisan type of work. This is artwork, right? Those guys in waxing, they are actually waxing and working very hard, and it's hard to measure. So they said, Michael at team, that time was production. I was doing lean work. I want production standards upstream, wax for pricing, and I want to do a lean pull downstream at finals, polishing. So number one, we delivered. Did we deliver? We delivered what the client wanted. And actually what you might see, the recurring pattern, the clients say what they want, it's not what they need. That's a very recurring pattern. A lot of the clients are not really sure what is actually they need. They think they know, but our goal as coaches is to take the client on a journey and a transformation journey to explain together, to uncover what it is they really need. And sometimes we don't have the answers and they don't. It's a mutual exploration process. So rear view mirror, the bad and the ugly. Did we make the problem worse? What do you think? Yes, of course we did. Because if you set production standard upstream, what do the folks want to do? Produce. And then what happens if the process is complex? Think software, right? Think software. It flows all the way down. Where do you get the quality defects? Down in polishing. So now polishing gets big pile up because we implemented a metric upstream that's not relevant as a metric downstream. Do we address scaling from a quality perspective? And I assure you, most Agile transformation have been here that focus on only one part of the chain of value usually fail because we're looking at a set of metrics here, and they don't scale. So scaling has to be thought from day one. How do we scale? How do we create work that is actually valuable across the delivery or the value delivery chain? And what is scaling anyway? So I want to share with you what is the outcome of scalability in knowledge organizations, right? And this is different because we think about scaling as ability to do DevOps and that's part of scaling, right? How can we scale the software to more clients? I want to give you a different take, my take on scaling, which is actually a people thing. I want to share scaling as the emergence and propagation of bad news in your organization, which is much more hurtful than not scaling software, right? So think about this. So this is an imaginary organization, right? In this organization, we have a team member, individual contributor, like we like to call them. And we're going to talk about scalability of signals. And they're doing something. Maybe it's a piece of code, maybe it's a piece of insurance, maybe it's a customer support, maybe it's anything that they produce, right? This doesn't have to be software. It could be anything. It could be in production line, could be claim management. So this individual contributor is thinking to themselves, holy crap, this will never work, right? So what do? And this is scalability of signals. They go to their boss and their boss tells them, try again, right? So they now thinking, okay, try again. The boss, right, the line manager, if you want, they're like, I'm not sure it's really working, but now I have a meeting with my director and they're telling the director, well, this probably won't work. Now the director, what they're hearing, and they're at scalability of signals, they're saying, did you check enough, right? So next meeting, right, same week, probably they're all on Zoom or maybe they're face-to-face, pre-COVID. Now the director, they'll go to they'll go further on to their vice president and they'll tell the vice president, this might not work. And the vice president is thinking, well, maybe you want to try 1,000 times. So the vice president is not that worried, if you noticed, right? There's like degrees of separation here. And they'll go to their senior vice president and say, we need more time to deliver this element of code or this hot fix or whatever it is we're doing. And the senior vice president will say, well, I assume you validated all scenarios, because that's what senior vice presidents, that's how they talk, right? They say, I assume you validated all scenarios. So vice president will now go, of course, to the CEO and say, you know what, this could work. What CEO is hearing? Yeah, this could work, right? I'm awesome. And then the CEO will go to the board member and say, it works. And the board member is like, we're in the green. Now, if this sounds devious, this is actually the scalability of signaling in organizations. If you look at the flow, right, the flow and safety, how fast failure propagates in an organization, the problem we're seeing in big organizations, the laggards in adoption, is that there's too many degrees of separation and there's not enough fast feedback. Look at big organizations releasing updates to their code, releasing updates to their products. There's too much separation. They haven't figured out how to scale the propagation of bad news. Good news travels fast. How do you spread the propagation of bad news, right? So when you're thinking about scaling, this is not only a software thing, it's not only a product thing, this is a people thing. So for me, scaling is how fast are we able to get those bad news all the way down up the chain and get feedback with a no blame culture, a culture that embraces bad news and is able to act upon them in a way that is metric driven. And this is one of the biggest ahas for me over the years of figuring out how organizations work and how can we help organizations really scale when they adopt lean, agile, and DevOps. So what is anti-scalability? What's the breakdown of communication? This happened to me 2 years ago with a client of mine, right? The obsessed output management will say, from now on, we will be reporting code commits as a measure of developer efficiency. Really? So what are the developers thinking? Well, I know how to change my behavior. We're not stupid, right? You want to measure my code commits? Okay, I'll make 100 a day if you want. And the outcome is 30 commits, no swarming, right? You don't get swarming, and it hinders psychological safety. So what is anti-scalability? If you're delivering, you're injecting output-based metrics and measurements, it impacts your ability to deliver. The impact, of course, is scaling suffers because there's no reporting of failures and we cannot scale well. If you want to look up, a lot of inspiration, DevOps comes from Forsgren et al., DevOps, better flow speed. So these are 4 metrics I've been sometimes offering my clients. These are more IT, of course, ops type of the development metrics that you can embrace. Some of them are market agility, some of them measures of reliability, and they're taken from the book, lovely read. For those winter COVID days, Accelerate. You can look up the QR code, snap it, or just follow the link. How about Scaled Agile Framework? I'm an SPC. I have a love-hate relationship with SAFe. I think many times the SAFe process, because it's so cumbersome, and again, I'm using SAFe, I teach SAFe, and I think we need to take it with a grain of salt. We need to be careful because sometimes SAFe, with all the process, hinders the emergence of bad news because you have like, oh, these folks do here, these folks do here. It's all like this big mess of stuff. And if you don't do it very well, and if you're not careful, especially for the laggards, the insurances, the big banks, embracing SAFe. SAFe will solve all the problems. No, it won't. It will just surface the problems already existed. SAFe helps you, done right, self helps you emerge bad news faster, but more often than not, it does not. So if we're thinking of business agility, and I like to think myself as a business agility architect and strategist, it's really about getting the faster feedback using whatever tool we're doing. And there are three things. If you're thinking about scaling, there are three things you need to focus on. Team agility, which is required but not enough, insufficient for high performance organizations. Technical agility, whatever that is, whatever the field you're at. So if you're doing software and IT, that's simple design and pair programming. So when you're producing software, these patterns are necessary for code quality. You can't do Agile just by having Scrum Master setting dates for daily scrums and retrospectives and so. No, you got to focus on tech agility, whatever field, right? If it's insurance, there are technical practices for insurance. If it's sales, I do sales Agile for marketing, Agile for sales. These are a different set of activities. We have diamond teams, and there are technical activities for the tech Agile within marketing. There's different activities for the tech Agile within HR. Reach out to me, ask me. I'm happy to share those. So you need to figure out that circle of the Venn diagram. You need to figure out what's inside there. And then, of course, there's a product agility. Now, without rapid customer feedback, we are answering, are we doing the right things, right? We could do things right, but are we doing the right things? So product agility, lean user experience, agile intake, hypothesis-driven development, and agile road mapping is crucial to scale successfully across your organization. So let me just say this again. Product agility, team agility, and tech agility are three must-haves in order to scale Agile in the organization. So if you're looking at what you're doing, you need to ask yourself, how am I doing for product agility? Am I actually creating small bits that I feed Agile teams and they get fast feedback? And his Agile team needs to ask, hey, do we have the right technical practices rather than just being, Scrum zombies? Or are we actually embracing those tech Agile? So if you do team agility and product agility, you're thinking about scaling. If you do tech Agile and team Agile, you're going to reach team performance. And in order to get DevOps right, you need both tech Agile and product Agile. And you need all three of them to get business agility. So I'll just repeat that. You need all three to get an architecture of business agility. Otherwise, you won't get it, of course. And part of that is looking at the signaling process in the organization. Exploration, not prescription. Scaling your team. So I've written 12 books. This is one of them. A lovely book about highly effective remote teams. Focus on your Agile team, right? There are a lot of practices, and we're like, yeah, we know all the practices. You need to be mindful of how you scale your teams in order to support a business Agile, business agility architecture. And it's about exploration, not prescription, right? Teams need to explore the behaviors that will give them high performance rather than me as a coach coming in and saying, oh, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't work very well anyways, and nobody likes that. One of my biggest transformations was moving from the, hey, I know the answer as a consultant to, hey, do we want to engage to figure out what could be an answer? Right, so that's a big change, right? Instead of saying, oh, I know what needs to be done, let's do Scrum, we'll be successful. It's more about, let's talk about this together. So the first thing is, where do we want to go? And I'll talk more about this in a minute. But this, as a coach, as a Scrum Master coach, as a team member, as an Agilist, as a Lean Agilist, as a DevOps Lean Agilist, our goal is to ask the questions while we know what is a possible answer in it, not fall in love with an answer, right? It's more about falling in love with the problems, not with the solutions, not with the process we think is the right process, but with the process of asking the question. So what are the mainstays of scalability? If you're scaling the process by pursuing output metrics, output scalability, this is not scalable. You won't get anywhere. If you're scaling the flow, if you're pursuing the outcomes of scalability, the outcome rather than the output, faster feedback, and you break the silo, that's That for me, if I'll go to the organization and I'm looking, hey, what are they doing here? Oh, they're looking at flow. Oh, they're talking about outcome metrics. Lovely. I love that. If we go to an organization, many times the laggards, they'll be looking at outputs, at velocity. I'm like, no, they're not going to get there. They're not going to be business agile. If your Scrum Master is your Jira admin managing meetings, if you have program management and PMOs and OKRs, and you're figuring out scaling of OKRs from here to here to here to here, this is not scalable. You're not going to be successful. If your Scrum Master is a coach and they're tuned to people needs and they talk about trust and collaboration, communication, that is more scalable and has better chances of success. If your intake process is HIPPO, highest paid person opinion, is how you make decisions. And when you have to decide between options, so you say, let's do them all. And I had clients that committed to 25 epics per year, even though the year before they only completed 8. So I was asking them, hey guys, how come last year you completed 8? This year you want 25? And they're like, no, we hired, we're much better. Really? Are you much better by 300%? Be real. You can be better by 15, 20, 25. Nobody promises with Agile 300% increase. Even the best consultancies, right? Even the safe guys don't say 300%, right? This is crazy. So, HIPPO coupled with this delusional thinking, oh, this year we're going to do 3 times more. This will fail. You won't be able to scale. If you use iterative evidence-based delivery controls, and you use them to control the flow of incoming work, you're scaling, right? If you're looking at, okay, let's look at the next 5 things. What can we experiment with? How can we get fast feedback? That has a better chance of actually succeeding. So we talked about simplicity. We'll talk about scalability. Let me take you on a journey of soakability.